Born in Mobile, Alabama in 1984, our next historic speaker is best known for her role on the hit show Orange is the New Black. Laverne Cox made history in 2014 as the first openly transgender person to be nominated for an Emmy in the acting category and to appear on the cover of Time magazine. A renowned speaker and activist, she gave her speech on bullying and being a trans woman of color in 2013, describing the disproportionate level of violence targeting trans women of color, a phenomenon she ascribes to a collective trauma stemming from slavery and Jim Crow. We are particularly honored to invite to the stage to recreate Laverne Cox's speech, Lourdes Ashley Hunter, National Director of the Trans Women of Color Collective, an organization making revolutionary change by uplifting the narratives, leadership, and lived experiences of trans people of color. She is a healer, orator, and academic who has led grassroots initiatives that impact the socioeconomic growth and development of trans and gender non-conforming people for over 20 years. Originally from Detroit, Michigan, Ms. Hunter's research, racial and economic justice activism, policy, and legislative work centers on the lived experiences, leadership, and capacity building of the trans and gender non-conforming people of color communities in the national social justice movements. She holds a bachelor's degree in social theory, structure, and change with concentrations in race, class, and gender studies from SUNY Empire State, and an executive master of public administration from Rutgers University. Ladies and gentlemen, traveling all the way from Washington, D.C., Lourdes Ashley Hunter, reading as Laverne Cox.
There was a moment about 10 years ago when I was walking to the subway on the Upper West Side. It was the 4th of July and I was wearing a red, white, and blue dress. It was really tight and I passed these two men. One appeared to be Latino, the other appeared to be black. And the Latin guy says, "Yo mama, can I holler at you?" And the black guy says, yo dude, that's an N-word. And then the Latin guy says, "No man, that's a bitch." And then they began to argue about whether I was a B word or N-word. What lovely options. That moment is indicative of a lot of the street harassment that I have had to endure. The street harassment started first because of these men found me attractive. When they realized that I was trans, it became something else. So many trans women have to experience this. Last month in New York City, a young girl named Alon Meadows was walking down the street in Harlem, and she was catcalled by a few guys. They realized that she was trans, and they beat her to death. In 2001, a trans woman named Amanda Milan was stabbed to death. Our lives are often in danger simply for being who we are. There are a lot of intersecting identities and intersecting oppressions that make that happen. The moment when I was called a B or an N-word, it was the moment when misogyny was intersecting with transphobia and some racist stuff. The racist piece is actually really important because I've talked a lot while white trans women haven't often experienced quite the level of street harassment that I've had. I've gotten in trouble by saying publicly that most of the street harassment I've experienced have been from other black folk. That's not to suggest that black folks are more homophobic or transphobic than everyone else, but there are some homophobic and transphobic black folk. I think the reason for this is that there's a collective trauma that a lot of black folks are dealing with in this country that dates back to slavery and Jim Crow South. During slavery and Jim Crow, black male bodies were often lynched and men's genitals were cut off. Sometimes they were pickled and sometimes they were sold. There's this historic fear and fascination with black male sexuality. I believe that a lot of black folks feel that there is this historic emasculation that happens and had been happening in white supremacy of black male bodies. And I think a lot of black folk see my trans body and feel that I am the embodiment of this historic emasculation. When I am called out on the street, it is as if I am a disgrace to the race because I am trans. I have so much love for my black brothers and sisters who might call me out on the street. I understand their pain. And I feel our oppressors are in pain. I think whenever someone needs to call out someone else for who they are, it's because they don't feel comfortable with who they are. If anyone has a problem with someone else, I ask you to look at yourselves first. I think it's important when we talk about bullying, we understand that when LGBTQ kids are bullied, oftentimes it is because of their gender expression. We hear the anti-gay slurs. It's really about these kids not conforming to the sex they were assigned at birth. We have to begin to create spaces where we can express our gender in ways that are true to ourselves. There is a link between the bullying of our LGBTQ youth and the violence so many trans women experience. What are we going to do about that? I think the answer is love.